All right, so we're going to go ahead and let Nina kick us off and introduce our speaker. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. This is really exciting. Thanks.
Thanks so much again for joining. This is our first webinar in our winter webinar series. So if you enjoy listening to our speaker, JB, we have a lineup of a bunch of great, wonderful speakers over lots of great topics. So before we begin, I just wanted to let everyone know that we'll be recording our webinar today. And I wanted to give a quick introduction to Tinker's Creek Watershed Partners. So we are a watershed-focused 501c3 nonprofit located in Northeast Ohio. Our mission is to protect and restore water quality and habitats in Tinkers Creek and Brandywine Creek watersheds through community partnerships. We engage in stream restoration projects, public outreach and education, support our member communities around stormwater and related issues, and we do webinars like these. We also host the Now Core program, where members volunteer for a year of service to maintain water quality throughout Northeast Ohio through stewardship, conservation, and education. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section of the meeting. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Jen Brumfield, who will be sharing with us all of her expertise on winter birding.
All right, I think you have it unmuted. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for popping in to this presentation on this chilly winter day. Alyssa, Nina, can you hear me just fine? All right, they have cooler backgrounds than I do. Much cooler. I'm going to have to figure that part out of Zoom, but I'm going a little rustic right now in the background. I see some of folks' favorite birds, black-capped chickadee for Josh Phillips, tufted titmouse. David Scott from Lakewood, cardinal. I'm seeing more black-capped chickadee love, more tufted titmouse love, cardinal junco. This is great. Sandy Barbick, my dad used to borrow her Streamulator. I have so many of your books. Well, I'm just pumped that all of you are here. We'll dive right into it because this presentation is going to take about 7.5 hours. That's the only amount of proper time to give to talking about birds at any time of the year. But I'm going to share my screen, so it'll probably take 2 seconds to turn over. I'm going to share my screen here, the entire thing. I'm clicking on it now, sharing, and we're going to bump over to my PowerPoint, get that rolled up. How's it looking, Nina and Alyssa?
Looks great, Jen.
Fantastic.
Good, thank you.
All right. So winter birding in Northeast Ohio, one of the first birds that everybody asks about every single winter are the snowy owls back. Where can I see a snowy owl? I want to know everything about snowy owls. Are the snowy owls here at this airport? Which part of the break wall are they on? Are they moving down this year? So much so that they typically get a lot of press, actually. So this is a faded out picture of a snowy owl photo I took from a boat out on the Cleveland lakefront break wall, the outer break wall there, as it was peeking up over a rock. This did appear in one of the Cleveland magazine in one of the news articles that regularly pop up. So snowy owl for a lot of folks sort of signals like it's winter time, baby. I want to see a snowy owl. And then also folks typically spend a lot of time, looking at birds at bird feeders. And a lot of folks as well just go, I don't really know where to go. It is cold. This fellow looked like some of my friends and coworkers yesterday or the past couple of days. And a lot of folks get turned off by the weather. And that's understandable because it can get pretty freezing. But dressing properly, and there are all sorts of amazing websites on the best gear to wear, how to layer up. You can get really in detail on how to do that. Dressing properly really opens this amazing door to getting outside during the winter and investigating some of these incredible habitats. This one being Henry Church Rock and South Chagrin Reservation. So being a Natural Resources Coordinator with Cleveland Metro Parks, serving in the Natural Resources Division. We are out, of course, at all times of the year and any kind of weather, surveying our properties, doing work on different properties. And of course, we can get out and get amazing photos in between work. But also, these are some of the sites that a lot of folks know very well. They're close to their homes or their destination sites. Henry Church Rock is a destination site. So whether it's waterfalls that get you out of the house, whether it's hiking that gets you out of the house, getting you into these different habitats of Northeast Ohio will get you on a lot of different bird species. Here's a number of different habitats to visit. Even during the cold of winter, top right screen is a wetland. So even if it's half frozen or mostly frozen, the vegetation, the various vegetation, wetland vegetation there attracts a number of different species. Open fields or the edge of forest, edge habitat, of course, is incredible for a variety of species, high diversity. And then riparian habitats. The two photos on the left are from Rocky River Reservation in Cleveland Metro Parks. The top photo, there's the Fort Hill Stairs, and the lower photo is just around the bend from the Fort Hill Stairs, the 100+ foot shale cliffs that are along the Rocky River itself. So getting to those riparian, those river, those stream corridors, diversifying the locations you visit will get you into various different bird habitats. And of course, some of you already listed this as one of your favorite species. And we could do an entire presentation just on black-capped chickadee. Black-capped chickadee, a passerine that is found year-round here, is mostly non-migratory. However, there are times when it will make something called an eruption, IRRUPT, eruption, where it will move out of intensely cold areas to sort of populate temporarily a different winter zone. But for the most part, the black-capped chickadees that you're seeing in the spring, summer, and fall are the black-capped chickadees that you're seeing in the winter. And their family connections are absolutely remarkable. Black-capped chickadees have this remarkable social structure. And again, we could do a whole presentation on this. Each band or group of black-capped chickadees has been documented to even have their own different social structure of communication calls. So they're able to recognize different ever so slight variations in either their chickadee-dee-dee or dee-dee-dee-dee-dee calls. The full gamut of their different calls are ever so slightly variable within groups. Those social groups will move around the forest, and with them, tufted titmice, another favorite winter bird of many folks. Tufted titmice join those flocks of chickadees amongst other birds such as white-breasted nuthatch, and together nuthatches, titmice, and chickadees, we'll go back to to titmouse here, they rove around in these amazing passerine flocks through our forest systems, utilizing the larger group as protection. So against predators, but also to help enable their ability to locate food sources as well. So it'd be like us moving from Chick-fil-A over to a Taco Bell, or texting someone, hey, where's the best burger? And then socially going together to go locate that. So all of these species actually communicate together when danger arises. Typically black cat chickadee is the one that barred owl or other species of owl is nearby, and the flock will either disperse or the flock together will go and harass the owl to let it know that they're not putting up with it within their territory. So tufted titmice, black-capped chickadee, white-breasted nuthatch can be found all throughout our different forest systems, from riparian, so that would be like our sycamores along river courses, maple forest, red maple, sugar maple, as well as our deep, beautiful hemlock, beech, maple, hickory forest. So fortunately, they're ubiquitous. They're even in folks' backyards to bring them joy. And they are very, very fun to observe with their winter antics. Within those flocks, you want to look closely for this little nugget. It truly is a nugget of a bird. This is golden crown kinglet, which weighs not more than about 2/4. So if you could imagine having or can put 2/4 in your hand right now, that's about the weight, if not a little bit heavier than a golden crown kinglet. And golden crown kinglet actually is a little more specialized in its preferences for wintering territory. This is a bird that that is just bound to hickory, hemlock, and beech forests in particular. So if you go to the absolutely gorgeous ravines of South Chagrin Reservation, North Chagrin Reservation, Bedford Reservation, and you're in the Hemlock Gorges, this is a tiny, tiny, tiny little bird to be on the lookout for within chickadee and titmouse and nuthatch flocks, golden crown kinglet. A lot of folks are really only familiar with this bird from spring and fall migration when their numbers burgeon, because they're coming through in very, very large numbers as they migrate up to the boreal forest to nest. But this is one of those special species that are very fun to detect this time of the year. That is another bird to be on the lookout for. Along with kinglet is one of the most underrated species, probably in all of North America, and that is brown creeper. I actually wish I could be giving this presentation to you face to face so you could just see the passion like leaking out of me for brown creeper. Um, Misunderstood, little known, typically a little bit tricky to detect. Brown creeper makes a very high pitched sound that a lot of folks just sort of overlook, or maybe aren't keyed in to listen for. Brown creeper does exactly what it's doing on this tree right here. It hitches itself up trees, flies down to the base of another, and then hitches its way up the side of that tree again. It is this very narrow, long, pointed, specialized bill that it uses to locate invertebrates that are wedged behind bark. They also amazingly nest behind bark. So, especially on shagbark hickory, if you're familiar with that species, or if you Google it, to look at uh, um, its type, the large bark that's perfect for this brown creeper own way. Brown creeper is an uncommon nesting species that helps us to actually locate very healthy habitat during the summer, as it's a deep forest bird. It typically prefers those hemlock, beech, maple, hickory ravines. So brown creeper is a lot of fun. And here's another reason why it can be hard to detect. There is a brown creeper in this photo. A lot of you have probably already found it. Oh yeah, I see it. But brown creeper is kind of off to the left-hand side there. Basically just a moving piece of bark. Its long tail feathers, which are called rectrices, that's the name for tail feathers on a bird, are highly pointed at the tips, much like a woodpecker, and they are extremely stiff, and so they allow that bird to be propped up at all times and easily hitch its way up a tree. Its camouflage is tops of many of the birds, even within North America of the world. Its camouflage is absolutely primo. So detecting black-capped chickadees equals detecting tufted titmouse and white-breasted nuthatch, which equals the possibility of detecting golden crown kinglet and brown creeper. So following these roving flocks, again, that are utilizing that social method of moving through the forest and able to locate food and evade or detect predators is super huge. You can really use that in your birding skills to maybe if you see a flock of chickadees, titmice, and nuthatches, Don't just say, okay, that's the 3 species in there. Watch a little bit closer. See if you see brown creeper hitching its way up the side of a tree nearby. Oftentimes, creeper will be the last of the flock. So as a flock kind of moves quickly through the forest, a creeper will lag behind as it finishes up creeping up the sides of those trees. Another species that can cause confusion for a lot of people, a little bit of surprise right at the beginning, is a lot of folks are surprised to know that we have eastern bluebirds that do overwinter in our location. Eastern bluebird is thought of mostly as a spring and summer bird. Typically in fall, they're very hard to find, as a lot of them are migrating. There's fewer that are sort of associating in fields together, but eastern bluebirds are actually a regular overwintering species in our shrubby fields along open woodland edges. And that is a species that is hunting for fruit. So it almost entirely shifts its diet from insects, arthropods, to fruit. So they're looking for crab apple berries. If there are some, service berry is a super important berry species for this bird. And of course, they bring folks a lot of joy as they brighten up the morning, the afternoon in the dead of winter. This is a male eastern bluebird. The females are a little bit duskier in color. And you're probably familiar with the bluebird boxes that are set up in multiple reservations in Ohio, and of course, throughout the East, the Great Lakes region. A lot of those nesting boxes really have helped over the past 50 years bring eastern bluebird back from a pretty dark period of population. So eastern bluebird population, I wouldn't say has skyrocketed, but it has essentially leveled off. Two of their biggest competitors are house sparrow and eastern starling. Those two birds are very tough. They're a very aggressive species and can very easily push eastern bluebird out of their natural nesting cavities in dead trees. So eastern bluebird being a wintering species is very exciting. Along those woodland edges, especially where you do locate berries, a lot of my days off involve going up to the lakefront to look for gulls, but then also looking for berry trees so I can try to find these roving species of birds. Once you find an area where berries are dense and abundant, set up shop. Eastern bluebird, American robin, bird like this is white-throated sparrow. White-throated sparrow, a lot of folks think, sparrows are brown and boring, man. I can't get into sparrows. But when you really start looking up at them, they're absolutely striking. This is the white striped form of white-throated sparrow. There's two forms of white-throated sparrow. Again, this is white striped form, and there's a duskier, sootier, browner form called the tan striped sparrow. And what that means is the bright white throat of this bird is eye-popping. And of course, it has those bright white stripes atop the head. On the tan striped form, they're duskier. They blend in a little bit more. They're not as eye-popping. This is a species that is with us through the deepest of winter, scuttling under dense shrubbery, kicking leaves away, looking for berries, looking for little arthropods, little insects down in the leaf litter. It's a tough bird, a really, really tough bird that is pretty underrated as well. Fox sparrow. This is one of the most glorious birds of winter if you can detect one. So finding these mixed species flocks, again, is super important to really enhancing your birding experience, your adventure experience out there. You might find a mixed flock of 20 American tree sparrows with a handful of white-throated sparrows. Look closely through that flock. Song sparrows could be mixed in. And this big beastie right here, fox sparrow, could be mixed in as well. This is the eastern red form of fox sparrow. It has deep, deep orangey chestnut stripes on it with beautiful grays intermixed within. Again, another bird that sort of puts the argument that sparrows are boring puts it to shame. Fox sparrow is very, very sharp bird, very elegant. This is a large sparrow that starts getting kind of close in size to a cardinal. Of course, cardinal having that very long tail and the crest makes it look very large, but fox sparrow is a big bird. And this one can kick leaves higher than a white-throated sparrow. This bird very aggressively will kick through leaf litter, throwing its entire body forward, throwing out its feet and scratching, kicking backwards to reveal any food below. So seeds and any insects that it can find in that leaf litter. Remember that anytime it is over 32 degrees, insects are quite active. You often have to, work to locate them, but insects, spiders are quite active anytime it's over 32 degrees. You get a warm, well, maybe not a warm to you, but a warm day when it's 35, 36, sun's out. Insects are actually flying around. We have a lot of moths that come out during the winter, a lot of fly species. And these birds take advantage of that. A gorgeous bird, eastern towhee, that a lot of people freak out when this bird shows up at their bird feeding systems because it is such a stunner. Eastern towhee, again, large like the fox sparrow. This bird is named towhee because its song does involve a drink your tea. So it kind of sounds like to-ree when it makes its contact call. This is a bird that also helps us understand vegetation levels and density in our forest during the summer. Eastern towhee has increased in number as a nesting species in summer in Northeast Ohio. And that is because in certain areas where we're doing a lot of work in multiple fronts, vegetation is slowly but steadily in some sites getting thicker from the forest floor to your head height. So that layer, that very important undercover layer that is gone absent from a lot of our forest floor. That is where the towhee nests. It's where it spends the majority of its life, along with countless other species that need that understory to be thick and proper. So towhee does stay here during the winter as well. This is one that puts a lot of birds to shame. Cedar waxwing is a bird that is actually a little bit difficult to describe its sheer beauty. It's a very odd bird, highly social. It flies around in flocks during the winter, going from berry tree to berry tree. The little waxy red wingtips on this bird's secondaries, so that's the feathers that you see that have the little red waxy wingtips. That is actually those colors and those shapes right there are some of that leftover unprocessed wax that is kind of hanging on to the bird, and that color will brighten a bit with the sheer amount of berries that this bird has consumed, as does the tip of its tail. Oftentimes, cedar waxwings, that yellow tip will almost become more of a or deep red based on some of its diet. Its face can get stained as well. This is a bird that, along with American robin, sort of later in the winter, can actually get quite drunk. That should wake you up from half falling asleep. So yes, so American robin, cedar waxwing, and a couple other species that highly focus on berries as their winter diet can unfortunately get quite slogged from fruit that is over ripened. So we sometimes see cedar waxwings and robins sort of sitting on the ground, sort of leaning over, eyes closed, and they're fine. They're just enjoying the taste of those overripe berries. Cedar waxwings are a bird that can be very tough to detect during the winter because they're on the move so much. As soon as a tree is drained of its berries, they're on to the next. So listening for them to fly over, watching for their flocks is important in finding this absolutely beautiful species. So here's another, this is sort of the classic view of cedar waxwing in the winter. drawing in those beautiful colors. This is a bird that does nest here. They nest late in the summer. They don't really start nesting until August, and are still sometimes going into September with their nest. But cedar waxwing is one of those gems. We were recently doing some work in South Chagrin Reservation, Jackson Field, that has been hosting a really nice flock of cedar waxwings. Carolina wren. This is a bird that'll wake you up in the morning, and it has attitude. This is a small bird, and you can kind of see how it's like, doesn't really care. Look at that face. Kind of looking over its feathered shoulder there, tail propped up, big feet up there, kind of giving you the over the shoulder look. This is a bird that has absolutely no idea, or I'm sorry, has absolutely no problem letting you know that it is present. They're extremely loud. So their song is a tea kettle, tea kettle, tea kettle, tea kettle, and they just will blare that out, or cheerio, 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 cheerio. So you got to listen to that. If you type in Google Carolina wren song, or go to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, their Macaulay Library pages, you can hear their song. They also do a variety of calls that I describe as shaming whatever is around. So if there's a raptor, if there's an owl or a hawk around, they do these calls that just shame that bird. Or even humans, if they are encroaching on their territory, they do really loud buzz and tick, 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 and calls that let you know that this is their home. Carolina wren saw a significant population drop in our area about 60 years ago during a very harsh winter. Carolina wren numbers plummeted, and it took them a little while to recover because they are a bird that mostly feeds on insects, arthropods during the winter, the crawling around, scrambling through underbrush. And when snowfall reaches an excessive amount for an excessive period of time, they cannot access those sites that give them proper cover and proper food supply. And so fortunately, Carolina wren has, however, bounced back significantly and is even a common backyard visitor for some folks. Turkey. This is a good one. It's always fun to see a turkey. People have various opinions on turkey, whether they're beautiful, whether they're rough looking, or just flat out sort of ugly. Either way, however you feel about it, turkey are back in our area after a recovery program from years ago. And they are easily detected in the winter because of their sheer size. So if you have a flock moving around together, turkey are fun to see as they're either sort of trotting, running like a velociraptor in the forest, or they're sitting up in a tree roosting, which actually shocks a lot of people. Yes, turkeys can fly, not extremely well, just enough to give them a quick burst to get up into a tree canopy or mid-story in which to roost, or burst up out of the undergrowth in a forest to evade predation. There is a program, through our ODNR Division of Natural Resources where you can report turkey. So even though turkey are back throughout all of Ohio, the Division of Wildlife is interested in keeping tabs on population of wild turkeys. So if you pop on to Ohio Division of Natural Resources, their wildlife tracking web page. This is one of many species where you can help enter some data to keep tabs on some of the selected species that they're interested in sightings. This is one of my favorite sightings during winter. These are the holes created by pileated woodpecker. And pileated woodpecker is just a beast. I continuously have deeper and deeper respect for this massive bird that is crow-sized. Um, Absolutely stunning black and white pattern on the underwings, red stripes atop the head, white stripes on the, I mean, just a beautiful, beautiful bird. And they are indicative of our deep, healthy forest systems as well. Pileated woodpecker is a bird that prefers to have a large territory. Whereas in a woodland, you might see several pair of downy woodpeckers nesting nearby one another, red-bellied woodpeckers. Pileated woodpecker really prefers a large territory. It's a big bird, and it necessitates a larger territory in order to locate food and raise its young. So some of these holes can become so obvious and significant that they can be of extreme detriment to an already dead or dying tree, really kind of push along the need for that tree to come down. These are massive holes created by pileated woodpeckers going after, probably in this case, carpenter ant larvae, as well as other insect grub types. So the larvae of many different insect species. So pileated woodpecker, thank goodness, is here in the winter. It is an awesome bird to go look for. So our healthier, larger forest tracts is where you'll see pileated woodpecker in decent numbers. And that's just a bird right there. We will quietly stare at that, look into the eye of that bird right there. That is a real stunner. Some folks are lucky enough to have that coming to their feeder, to their suet feeders. Typically, those folks do have a fair amount of land behind their house. But that is just a bird that will knock your socks off. So fun to see during the winter. All right, we're going to the lake. We're going to go to Lake Erie, which is far and away our one of our greatest resources. Still little known to many folks, still not visited by many folks who would very likely benefit, if not become addicted to visiting Lake Erie for birding purposes all throughout the year. Up along the lakefront, you often, for folks that are south of the Lake Erie lakefront, sometimes you'll see in the Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com, or News Channel 5, Channel 8, Channel 319, the reports of, my God, there's hundreds of thousands of dead fish everywhere on our river, on our lake. And for some folks, this time of the year, they'll go, oh no, what's happening? Do we have another pollution event? When this happens, when that quite disgusting picture there I could do with all of the plastic bottles there, but that scene of fish laying there, I rejoice, because that means that it's time for gulls. And boy, do we get a lot of gulls. We'll talk about that in a second. And wow, are they incredible at cleanup. Turkey vulture is still by far and away the single best at cleaning up the dead, but gulls do a pretty nice job as well. These are gizzard shad. And this time of the year through March, we will have big shad die-offs. And they're nasty. They're a lot to look at or not look at. It can look overwhelming. The smell can be overwhelming, but this is perfectly normal. So again, you'll see this pop up into the news with people worried about chemical spills and whatnot, water quality. But gizzard shad do a massive die-off with the extremes in temperature changes with air and water temperature. And when shad die off, they bring in scavengers being our gulls. And so as we switch into gulls, which a lot of you will try to nap through, I will talk even louder and hopefully hold your attention, because there is no such thing as a seagull. I say this in 20 minutes, I'll get a bunch of emails from you guys making jokes about seagulls. I get it. I already have one coworker rags on me so hard about seagulls. So nothing you can say to me will faze me anymore. But there is no such thing as a seagull. Not a single bird on earth is named seagull. Seagulls do not exist. That is, however, a super fun name to call the gulls when you're sitting by the ocean. Oh, there's a seagull, because they're associated with the sea or the ocean. But there is not a bird on earth actually named seagull. We do, however, get hundreds of thousands of ring-billed gulls, herring gulls, Herring, ring-billed and herring gulls are two most abundant, most common. This is a picture taken from down in the flats by Chuck Slusarzik, one of my birding buddies. And we just rejoice when we see this. This might give you anxiety, I don't know. But this is like my best day ever out in the winter looking at gulls. And the flock just gets bigger. So that's a tiny portion there. And, it just kind of keeps going as far as the eye can see. This is right past the Cuyahoga River mouth there with the West Pierhead Lighthouse right off of Wendy Park. This is a typical view. We get hundreds of thousands of overwintering gulls taking advantage of the remarkable fish population that we have in Lake Erie. Two of the main species, again, being gizzard shad and the other being emerald shiner. Another species, there's a couple shiner species that they just pick off like crazy, but shad being probably the number one. But our fish population is just fantastic. If you were to go to Chicago right now or New Buffalo on the shoreline of Michigan, you might see a flock of like 200 gulls. And they would be birders there would be thrilled to see 200 gulls sitting in a group together. That's about the max that they see. Sometimes they see 300 to 400. But Cleveland is the city of gulls. Last year, in fact, we had I wouldn't even call it an event, but a running thing that we nicknamed Gullhalla, like Valhalla, Gullhalla, for the sheer diversity of gull species we racked up. A couple friends found exceedingly rare slaty-back gull, glaucous wing gull from the West Coast, a bird called common gull, which is not common at all. The subspecies was from Russia. So we draw in a lot of gulls. This photo taken by Chris Kuhar in downtown Cleveland as well. So if you want to find us birders, you know where to go, downtown somewhere in the winter as we pour through these gulls looking for various species. Again, none of these are seagulls. So what are we looking for? This is a flock of ring-billed and herring gulls. What are we looking for? We're looking for things like Bonaparte's gull. This is a beautiful little bird. The flock flies around really tight like a swarm of fish would. Highly social bird. They make a beautiful little sound. They go bam, 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 bam. That's a sound that they make. It's amazing. Quite adorable as well. Rough and burry. Bonaparte's gulls are small, they're migratory, and they stop in our area to forage and feed and stage before they move on out to the East Coast or inland reservoirs. Within Bonaparte's gull flocks, we look for, this is one of the best birds in the world because how simply beautiful it is. This is little gull, the aptly named little gull. It's probably in real life not a whole lot larger than it is appearing on your computer screen. A shocker of a bird that has jet black underwings. That's not just shadow, its underwings are truly jet black. This is an adult little gull. A bird that actually is from Europe that not too long ago recently started nesting in North America and now can be scattered across the Great Lakes region. Great black-backed gull. This is a bird right here. This is the largest gull in the world. Great black-backed gull causes trouble out in Maine where it swallows baby puffins whole. So you can have your various opinions of great black-backed gull. For us, it is a real honker to see. We have no puffins here, so we don't have to get angry and upset. Great black-backed gull is a real bruiser. It is a big bird that has a beautiful dark slaty gray mantle on top with little white spots on the primaries. Glaucous gull. This is another sharp looking non-seagull. Glaucous gull is an Arctic species of gull. So when we're looking through these flocks of thousands of birds, we might have a day where we see 4 or 5 glaucous gulls and we rejoice. That is a beautiful bird right there. This is a first year glaucous gull going into its second year. Quite soon. It's got that pink base bill with the dark tip. And again, scavengers. These will just suck down. This is a big bird. They'll just suck a gizzard shad straight down into their gullet and go on to the next one. Scream at another gull and then, eat another fish. When you go up to the lakefront starting in November, you will see masses of another species. We are the second largest overwintering site for red-breasted merganser, a type of diving duck. And the entire lakefront in front of you can be covered in this view. This view is just pure red-breasted merganser, male and females, just scuttling around as the flock picks up to fly again. Another species indicates how well our fish population is doing in Lake Erie. We will see on average each year upwards of 75 to 100,000 of these birds staging in Cleveland all along the lakefront, East 55th Street Marina to Edgewater Park, Huntington Reservation, Rocky River Park are all excellent places to view red-breasted mergansers and their massive hordes. This is a close-up view of what adult males look like, a sharp-looking bird with that odd bill for a duck. That's quite odd, being that it's very long and highly serrated. They are the perfect diving duck shape and machine. Very, very slender, very slicked back appearance. You can almost imagine this is exactly what they look like underwater as they're diving for a fish as well. And that serrated long bill ensures that whatever they grab will go down the throat. So, an amazing hunting species, aquatic bird, our red-breasted merganser. Out on the lake right now, let me give you hope in that spring, for those who don't like winter, spring is coming. This is a common goldeneye. This is a male common goldeneye, another one of our diving duck species. And this is what it does when it is displaying to a female. And right now, end of January through February and March is when goldeneye start displaying. They pop their head straight up and then they throw their neck and their head back and they let out, I'll do the sound. It's amazing because it's super dramatic dance to only let out this sound. Could you hear that, Alyssa, Nina?
We heard it.
Excellent. They throw their head. It's super dramatic. Multiple males will be swimming around a female and they lift their head up dramatically, throw it back, and just go, me. That's it. It's amazing. It is one of the most just stunning displays with the most pathetic sound, but that is and does attract female goldeneye. Whoever does the best dance with the best meep attracts the female goldeneye. So here's 2 males doing the dramatic dance for the female who I can't put emotions on birds. I refuse to do that. But if I were to, that bird just looks interested in hunting for more fish. But those are the males, mid-meep, that little beeping, buzzy meep sound that they do. Common goldeneye are a remarkable diving duck species that stage here on Lake Erie as well, part of our amazing waterfowl diversity that includes redhead, lesser scaup, greater scaup, canvasback, ringneck duck, and this is a mixed flock of those species. This is primarily redhead with some canvasback mixed in, lesser scaup mixed in, 2 ringneck ducks if you can find them. That's a tough one. That's a good quiz. But just an amazing number and diversity at a waterfowl called Lake Erie home. These are best viewed in coves, areas that are somewhat well, hidden from our intense winds. And you can really, really, really get into ducks that way. Quickly, back to the woods. We're going to do some what I call hole hopping. It's hard to say, hole hopping, but it's great. When you're in the forest, one of the most addicting things you can do during the winter is check holes in trees. So looking for tree cavities and looking to see what you can find in them. This program is about birds, not mammals, but this is sometimes what you will find. That is a raccoon. That is everybody's favorite and unfavorite trash panda. But this is a mammal. It clearly is abundant here, and can be fun to find in their resting holes, their tree cavities up in trees. Another thing that you will find while you are hole hopping with your binoculars is a point blank eastern gray squirrel or a fox squirrel, sometimes a red squirrel, but this is a mug shot of a gray squirrel. What you're really looking for, however, is this. I'm drinking some water real quick. That is the red phase of eastern screech owl, very creepily peering out of that hole. Hole hopping is a blast during the winter because it really gets you working on your observation and detection skills, looking for very minute differences in patterns. This is an eastern screech owl in the limb of a tree in a hole, and their camouflage is just remarkable. You know, if that was a little ways away, that would be a little bit difficult to detect. You might need a spotting scope to see it really well. But hole hopping has its pleasures, and eastern screech owl is one of the a win that you can get from doing that. This is a pair of eastern screech owls, the red phase on the left, the gray phase on the right. They are not actual phases or morphs, as the word suggests. The word phase suggests that they go through a phase. The word morph suggests that they turn into something else. But they are not. They are color forms. They are a color form of eastern screech owl. Red typically is a little less abundant, less common than gray. Eastern screech owl is absolutely tied to sycamore trees and cottonwood trees. Riparian zones are some of their favorite. They also stick to those riparian zones because great horned owls and barred owls, which will hunt and consume screech owls, are found in the larger forest tracts. So along riparian, the river and stream and creek systems, they do very well. Look at holes in sycamore trees for eastern screech owl, and you will find one. Another species to be looking for as you are hole hopping or cavity hopping is barred owl. They can blend in rather amazingly. Barred owl has become so abundant now that they have been found nesting in many folks' backyards in the suburbs. They nest in tree cavities. They roost in tree cavities. And let me clarify something here. Maybe one day you'll win on Jeopardy with this. When a bird is in a hole in the winter, that is not its nest. That is its roost. That is where it is sitting. It is sleeping. Birds only nest when they are actually nesting, building a nest, laying eggs, and raising their young. So this bird is not on its nest. This bird is on its roost. This bird is roosting in this open cavity in this tree. Barred owl can actually be active all throughout the day, hunting squirrels, hunting rabbits, hunting small birds. So barred owl is a bird that when you're in a beautiful, beautiful oak and hickory and beech forest, you can find barred owls sometimes sitting out, rather alert, just sort of looking around, whether it's hunting or not. A beautiful bird to locate. This is the time of year when red-tailed hawks are pairing up. They are pairing up quickly. You will sometimes see them sitting together in large trees along roadsides. As you look for red-tailed hawks, our most common hawk in Northeast Ohio, watch them flying back and forth from nests. They are nest building right now. Red-tailed hawks and some owl species are already sitting on some of their nests, prepping them or possibly even incubating eggs. If you locate what you think is a red-tailed hawk nest, look closer. So in this red-tailed hawk nest, there is not a red-tailed hawk. There is a gray horned owl. You can see those quote unquote horns which are just feathers. They don't have horns. Those are tufts that come up. They are not ears either. Their ears are located in the sides of their heads by their eyes. Those are their ear tufts, purely feathers. And great horned owls.
Sorry to interrupt, Jen. Just to let you
Oh,
know,
am I
we've got
almost out of
about
time?
9 minutes left in the meeting.
No. Okay. All right. I'm moving. I'm cooking. All right. Great horned owl will be raising their young. Their young will fledge in March and early April. So they are sitting on and building nests right now as they raise their young early in the winter time. We'll move quickly into northern saw-whet owl, which is another one that sometimes makes the papers because this is one of the most adorable and tiniest owls in the world. Northern saw-whet owl is barely the size of a soda can. And saw-whet owl is very difficult to detect. They're very small, tiny little bundle of feathers, and they jam deep into cedars. They love roosting during the winter in cedar trees. So plant more native cedar trees everywhere. And they can also be found in roosting in white pines, roosting in fir trees, and in spruces. Very difficult to detect. Sometimes they sit way up in branches, but watch for their whitewash and pellets below their preferred roosting site. So they puke the pellets up, that they regurgitate those. Those are the fur and the bones that are mushed up together into pellet form. And then the whitewash is their excrement. It looks like white paint. Below a roosting owl site is pellets and paint. Northern saw-whet owl, which this would be another sweet presentation too. Northern saw-whet owl is regularly banded. It is a migrant bird that only comes down here for a very short period of the time during winter. We are hopeful, though, that we might be able to locate some nesting northern saw-whet owls, which require very healthy forest tracks along hemlock ravines. But that's another presentation for another time. Northern saw-whet owls being banded at multiple locations along their migratory route in the Great Lakes. Finally, we will end strong with snowy owl. Snowy owl is not just that owl from that darn movie where the boy is flipping around his wand, Potter. Snowy owl is a remarkable bird. It is one of the largest owls in the world. It is quite heavy, coming in at 6, 7, 8 pounds, which is very heavy for an owl. And it is highly eruptive, very mysterious. It is a bird whose normal wintering grounds is in the Canadian tundra, where they set up shop. That's also where they nest, but they also overwinter on the tundra and primarily hunting lemmings, which is a large, looks like a large vole, to give you a good idea. Snowy owls do this thing called erupting. Again, IRRUPT, erupting, where if they have a phenomenal nesting season and each nest pumps out a couple of juvenile owls, those young owls may move way to the south of their normal wintering territory in order to set up shop on their own wintering territory. They essentially might be booted out of the wintering territory of the hundreds of adults on location as well. However, the other reason they will erupt is if the lemming and vole population crashes to the north. So that being their prime prey item through the winter, if that crashes, if their numbers go way down, snowy owls will erupt. They will move south during the winter. And when they do, of course, they make the news because they're sitting sometimes on the tops of churches, on the tops of houses, in marinas, on break walls. Here's a snowy owl sitting on a break wall. And Cleveland is an excellent location to host snowy owls because we have a 5-mile long break wall offshore downtown where these snowy owls can roost during the day. And then they come closer to shore and they hunt for sleeping gulls and ducks, geese, and coots along the shore in marinas and right up along the shore's edge at night, and rats. So snowy owl, when they do erupt, is a fan favorite in Cleveland. Some years we've had multiple at Burke Lakefront Airport. One year we had 8 at Hopkins Airport alone. And when snowy owls do erupt and are being seen, one of the best ways to find out about them, other than social media, is to look at a Facebook page called Ohio Rare Birds. And Ohio Rare Birds is a birding group. It reports rare and uncommon species only, so you don't have a bunch of junk to filter through. That is a location where snowy owl sightings will be shared. This year they have not erupted, but when they do, going to Cleveland Hopkins Airport, scanning their Burke Lakefront Airport, and the various marinas in Cleveland is the best. Last thing, I have 3 minutes. I know I do, Nina and Alyssa. I'm going to quickly stop sharing, but I'm going to do it again because I want to pull up here. I want to pull up quickly eBird. Am I still sharing the screen? No, that was a no.
No.
Okay, now I am. Hold on. Last thing. This
There
is
we go.
very important. eBird. If you are not using eBird, I highly recommend that you do. Even more than iNaturalist. eBird is a remarkable tool designed by Cornell Lab of Ornithology many years ago. It is very easy to use. Once you learn how to enter your sightings, the app is even easier. You can do a checklist of birds while you're walking back to the car. If you're carrying shovels and rakes, you can even do it one-handed. You can enter your eBird, your bird list for the day. This is my personal eBird that just shows a list of my checklists. It shows eBirding over time through various years, month by month, but the Explore section will absolutely blast you into the birding world through a remarkable amount of information. This is a very simple look at the entry listing for snowy owl, where you have access to hundreds upon hundreds of 44,779 photos, 31 audio recordings, as well as a live active map that shows you where snowy owl has been seen ever located, as well as the last thing I'm going to show. I do show points sooner, and we can zoom in. We're going to zoom in one more time. These blue pins are all where snowy owls have been seen. And currently, one is being seen in Rudyard, Michigan. We're going to click on it in a field just east of Route 75 by the Circle K Ranch. It was seen January 14th, photographed the 11th. We will go to the eBird checklist to see what species they saw on site. Here's their listing finally. So they are very excited that they saw this bird. Good job, Dwayne. Finally, singular first-year bird way out on the telephone pole, distant photos, as well as 66 snow buntings. We'll click on this one from last year. You can upload your photos. This is essentially the single best diary you can possibly fathom, because you can upload your photos as well. This is life-changing, as well as seeing migratory routes of birds, their breeding bird census data. You can enter just about anything that you can imagine. I will pause. I see the look on the face of Nina and Alyssa and Erica, and we can take questions. But yeah, we could go for another 7 hours because there's just so much to dive into, even during the winter. All of this data is super important. A lot of people think, oh, we go and we do, breeding bird census just during the summer. I do spring birding, but I don't do winter. try to turn that around. Do a lot of winter birding. We need to know about the species that are utilizing these habitats and our reservations, our parks during the winter as well. It all goes into helping to conserve that land. So thank you everybody for listening. Hopefully no one is asleep. Hopefully at least the snowy owls woke you up. And if you ever have any questions, I'm going to put in, you know what, I can only message hosts and panelists. I don't know how to change that. I would like to type in
Carrot, sorry to change it to everyone. It's right at the top of your chat box.
my chat box. Click on attendees.
Where it says hosts and panelists, if you click on that, you should be able to swap it over to everyone.
Oh.
Or if you share
not right now. So
okay.
I'm
You
going to
can
do
copy
this.
it to everybody else if you share it to Alyssa or myself.
Oh, great. Here we go. Okay. It's JLB1 at clevelandmetroparks.com. If you have any questions about anything, not even just bird related, if I can't answer it, I will find the person who best can. But I really appreciate your listening in on this Thursday. And please send Alyssa, Nina, and Erica ideas for more too. They'll tell you all about that. But
yes,
thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I'll
Thanks so
stick
much for
around
attending.
questions.
Yeah, does anyone have questions? You can put them in the chat box here. I was scrolling through very briefly and I didn't really see any that stood out question-wise. I also did post in the chat that we have volunteer opportunities coming up soon. You'll also get a exit survey when you leave the chat. So if you could please fill out that exit survey, it's really helpful information for us and for our Now Core program too. I listed our website and our Instagram in the chat as well. So yeah, so I think we do have a question here from Nancy. What's the best time of day to see woodland birds?
That is an excellent question. It is going to be really temperature dependent. While woodland birds are going to be active first thing in the morning, even on our deep cold days, they're going to be mostly very quiet. As they kind of get moving and the flock sort of starts associating together is when they start making more of those contact calls. So in the winter, you could wait a little bit after sunrise for sure. Let it maybe raise another 2 or 3 degrees and get out there. For today's, like if I were to go birding tomorrow, I would suggest getting out there by 9 a.m. To catch that morning. You know, that's a little bit later towards mid-morning, but 9 a.m. is a good time to start. There's no need to get right out there at dusk on those deep cold days. I'm sorry, at dawn on those deep cold days, because even though they are out foraging and hunting, they're much easier to detect, to find a couple hours after sunrise.
Thank you. I also see another question here from Josh Phillips. What is JB's favorite winter bird?
That is an excellent question, Josh Phillips. And my answer goes back and forth between Iceland gull and long-eared owl. A long-eared owl is hands down one of the best birds in the world. Difficult to locate, very unique species. It looks like a small great horned owl with extra long tufts. That's a bird right there. And then I love gulls. So you can find me if you want to on my weekends up on the lakefront sorting through gulls, looking for Iceland and glaucous gulls. They are gorgeous birds.
Thank you. Didn't you also rescue a gull the other day, yesterday?
I
or 2
did,
days
yeah.
ago?
So Martin Luther King Day, I decided to take off so I could get outside into the great wide world and get some time in with gulls. And at one of the marinas, at Edgewater Marina, I found a Bonaparte's gull, that little small, adorable gull. It was caught in ice. Now, as a person deeply woven into the natural world, not just a bird lover, we have to look at things very realistically. Birds do sometimes this time of the year become ice bound, um, by accident, or if they have an injury or if they're weak. Unfortunately, the world is tough. Weather events are tough, and birds do succumb to being icebound. And that just means that maybe their primary tips, those long wing feathers, become locked in the ice, or feet can become icebound, locked in the ice. In this instance, this injured Bonaparte's gull was also icebound, and it was easily accessible off of a boat ramp via a very, very long fishing net. So I do not recommend doing any kind of rescue of birds unless you know exactly what you are doing every single step of the way. Instead of trying it, call someone who does it. Um, so we were able to successfully rescue this icebound injured Bonaparte's gull that had a fractured wing, with an extremely long neck. My friend was in waders, and we were not in a location where we could have fallen through the ice. So these are all very important things. That bird is at Lake Erie Nature and Science Center with a wrapped wing around its fractured wing, and it's just pounding gizzard shad. It is eating shad like you would both holiday meals in one. So hopefully that bird can make the swing, get back out there. But birds, naturally have a lot of things up against them. And I personally, and a lot of others, don't like to interfere with those things, but this bird was accessible. We did it, made it happen. So.
Thank you. We also have another question here from Erin. Hi, Erin. If you were to hang an owl box, what would your criteria be for the ideal location?
That is a good one, Erin. First, you want to, I'm going to assume you're in Ohio, but if you could type in the chat, you want to know what state you're in, what species you're attempting to attract. So Eastern screech owl has a very different entry hole shape and size than barred owl does. Also different in size and shape than barn owl does. So it depends on the species of owl you are attempting to attract. If you are attempting to attract Eastern screech owl, Brooklyn, Ohio, the box is pretty large. It also depends on the size. Why don't you email me, Erin, what size the hole is across, so the diameter. So if you are attempting to attract Eastern screech owl, you want the box to be facing the southeast, not the north, where it's going to take the brunt of the weather. And you want it to be up at least 15 feet minimum. So you want to get it up there a little bit. If you can get it to a spot that has a little bit of vegetation very nearby, that would be good. So basically, a box is pretty obvious. And even though screech owls will sometimes roost in wood duck boxes in the middle of a pond, it's always best to give them the best possible. So get it. If you have a layer of trees, I would put it on like the second layer back. So if you got a tree up front, then you got one right behind it, put it on that next one back, just to kind of give a blockade. But yeah, totally dependent on the species.
Thank you so much. And I think, do you have time to answer one more question? And
oh yeah, I will go with questions for the next, whenever they die, whenever they're done.
Okay.
Well, I see. What do you feel about feeding birds in winter? Is that the next one, Alyssa,
yes.
Nina?
Yes.
So I am personally okay with feeding birds in winter. What you should ideally, if you can, take your feeders down at night, if possible. only because the fallen seed and the suet will attract raccoons. And they'll come, at night, and it's never great to have raccoons hanging out routinely in an area. That's probably going to happen anyway from the scent and the spillover of seed. Feeding birds in winter is not saving the birds. That's the most important thing to understand. These birds are overwintering here because this is their natural overwintering territory, location, and range. You going into feeding birds, some folks go, "Oh, these poor birds, they're so cold," and they're not going to make it. They are going to make it. This is like extra ice cream. You don't have to eat ice cream, but when it's there, you're going to eat ice cream. And that's kind of what this food supply is. No doubt that birds religiously visiting a bird feeder system will probably start incorporating that into their daily routine as part of where they go to locate food. Food and bird feeders you should look at it as supplementary, not saving the birds' lives. You don't want to get into that point where you think, you're. I also do say, though, if you are going to put out food in the winter, because you are supplementing their food supply, and because they might actually change their daily territorial foraging route, you might want to make that a commitment. And you also want to give them the best possible food that you can. And that would be suet. That is beef. That's pure fat. So give them some suet to mow down on. That's just pure fat, as well as peanuts. Not human peanuts. The unsalted, whatever peanuts. They sell bird peanuts. That's huge on fat. But the important thing is emotionally do not connect yourself to feeling like you're saving something. These birds are remarkable in their ability to survive the deep cold. It is hard for most of us to actually fully wrap our minds around just how perfect of survival they have for these deep cold temperatures. And clean up your seed afterwards. Don't let all of the fallen seed get moldy and nasty, because you'd actually end up causing disease. You want to keep your feeders clean, the feeders, and clean off stuff on the ground, because that can quickly backfire. All of a sudden, the birds you are drawing closer to observe become diseased. And that's bad news bears.
Thank you, JB, for the tips and answers. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat here. So I just wanted to thank everyone again so much for attending. We have a few more webinars coming up. I've listed those in the chat as well. We have one February 8th, same time, with Dr. Brand from Cuyahoga County Board of Health talking about microplastics in human health, a lunch and learn. And then we have a webinar on the 14th of March with Meadow City Nursery. Dave Tomaszewski from Meadow City is going to talk about bees and native plants as well. Oh, was there one more
Melissa,
question I
Nina.
missed?
Oh, my bad. It's okay. I was going to say
Oh, no, I
thank
think you got it. Yeah, go for it.
Is there another question?
I think we're all
good.
set.
Any other thing, email me, please, if you have any other questions. Well, thank you everyone so much for tuning in. And Erica, Nina, and Alyssa, thanks so much for having me. That was fun. That was a blast.
Thank you. Yep, it was great for us.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Get outside and get birding.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye, folks.
Bye.